Good morning, dear participants, dear guests. Today we all focus on rebuilding normal life in our country. The cities and the communities are facing huge challenges. Some of them provide for our normal life, others are getting rebuilt, but the local self-government has become the backbone of our civil defense. In this situation of the war, the leaders of the communities have shown how care they about the IDPs and the residents. Today, the local authorities are taking huge efforts to carry out their everyday services. They host IDPs that provide assistance to those communities where hostilities continue. Every day, the local authorities show resilience and they overcome challenges. I want to thank you for it. Today, the local self-government is facing huge challenges. First of all, they have to take care about our citizens, their life, their health, to take care about the internally displaced persons and the education for their children. Second, to make sure that our villages, settlements, and towns continue living. Third, support business amid the war situation, create conditions for export-oriented businesses, for relocated businesses. I understand your needs because there is a huge load on your shoulders. That's why you need financial support, professionals, staff, technical equipment. You need for the legislation to be urgently improved. The government, the parliament are working now in coordinated way how to fund the costs in the situation of the war, how to build up the capacities of the communities, how to quickly assess material losses, how to rebuild the destroyed infrastructure, how to provide social support to the IDPs. For 3 months, the government and the parliament have already adopted a number of important issues. We're talking about increasing the capacities of the armed forces of Ukraine, the work of the utilities, the municipalities amid the war. We will continue doing everything possible to give our cities and communities a possibility to be effective in this difficult time. Decentralization has helped our unity, and I'm sure that jointly we will be able to build the architecture of revived Ukraine. We will win together. Thank you very much, Mr. Chernyshov. We will definitely win. We will now just take care of the next heating season for the communities, because that's also an important issue for all of us today. I'd like to hear now a representative of the Parliament of Ukraine, member of Parliament representing the majority political force who inspires most issues that the parliament discusses related to construction, technical issues. Olena Shuliak, Deputy Chairwoman of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on the Organization of State Power, Local Self-Government, Regional Development and Urban Planning. Good morning, dear colleagues. Good morning, dear panelists, representatives of the international community, representatives of the local authorities, our dear mayors, representatives of the communities, experts. Thank you for giving me a chance to work together with you at such an important forum. We are limited in time. That's why I will be brief to tell you about what the Parliament is doing now, where we are, what the initiatives are prioritized for us, and what we plan to do. Ukraine today is actively working in 3 fronts. The first one is the military one, and there you know that we just need 3 things: weapons, weapons, and once again weapons. And today, representatives of the parliament and the government and all those who can work with the international community so that they can give us more weapons, we're working on it. The second equally important front is the international or diplomatic one. You know how important it is today to remain to become candidates for the EU membership. So today the government and the parliament are working in different countries with all kinds of representatives of various parliaments and other decision makers so that Ukraine gets its candidacy, not as a dream, but as a reality in June of this year. And the third front, equally important, is the economic front, or let's say the front of rebuilding, revival of Ukraine. We understand that after the victory, we should be ready in terms of legislation and on other levels to proceed to rebuilding, reviving this country. Today, the parliament is working, as a defense coalition today. So all political issues have, in fact, been pushed out. We try to reach consensus with other political forces so that all the decisions that are supported by consensus can be voted by the parliament. About 10 initiatives coming from our committee related to local self-government and urban planning have either been registered at the parliament or have passed the first reading, and some others are to be signed by the president soon. Three main initiatives, briefly. The first one is the draft law 7282, approved by the parliament. It is to be signed by the president. We're waiting for the signature because with this law, we're introducing a new notion called the comprehensive rebuilding of the territories program. That's a very important region that have been occupied and that require a quick and a clear for Ukrainian citizens, for international partners, a clear document like that. And this document, we plan that the local authorities that will organize, the development of these documents and approve it at their sessions and discuss it with the people. We plan this document to be a basic policy document to understand what happened to those territories, which infrastructure has been destroyed, how the rebuilding plan should look like. And if this paper will provide an assessment of all the resources that are still there, special attention would be planned to the environment and to the cultural heritage destruction. Well, of course, a lot of attention will be paid to business development, whether business has relocated from those territories, whether it is possible to bring it back or to bring it back if it has been ruined. We will also analyze and identify all the sources of funding and all the other aspects of migration processes. I think that this document will be a basic one. After the urban planning documents will have to be changed and in order to work with our donors. This law 7282, with that document, we have simplified the procedures that are related to temporary housing for the IDPs. Such temporary housing, such quick housing will not have the status of real estate. It will not be permanent. But today, when we have this urgent need to build modular settlements and houses, we have given this possibility to the community so that they can work quickly on that. Well, of course, land issues are important, related to various problems that enterprises and businesses that have been relocated have. Today, more than 1,000 businesses have used this possibility, moving from central Ukraine and the east of Ukraine to western Ukraine. We know what problems they have faced. That's why we have tried to regulate it as much possible with this law. Another initiative that we have at the parliament, and I hope that we will discuss it at the next session, we all understand that we are going to live in the new real situation where security will be our top priority. That's why we would very much like the issue of shelters, of bomb shelters, would become a priority for the country. With this draft law, on the level of urban planning, on the local and regional level, we will definitely have a chapter dealing with the engineering means that provide security and safety to the population with those shelters. I hope that this draft law would be approved by the parliament. The Ministry for the Community and Territory Development is now actively working to change the building standards, construction standards. We're studying the experience of other countries such as Israel, Finland, and Switzerland, their experience in order to choose the best possible method for Ukraine, how to protect our people. This week, we have voted the first reading for the draft law 6475, which is about energy efficiency of the buildings. It has been submitted by the government and discussed actively with the international experts who provide countries that provide technical assistance to us. We think that energy efficiency, especially now when we will have to build many things from scratch, so we should not close our eyes or forget that energy efficiency is also a step toward independence of the country. That's why I hope that the reconstruction of the houses, of the administrative buildings, and new housing construction will take into account those new requirements related to such an important aspect as energy efficiency. And the third draft law I want to tell you about is 7198. It has been developed by both the government and the parliament. The president initiated this draft law. It's a very simple draft law. The bill says that our people, Ukrainians, who do not have any residences today because they have been destroyed or damaged during the hostilities, they will have the right not to wait for a reparation or for the decisions of international courts, but they would be able to get compensation from the government. And conceptually, with this bill, we decided not to write about the legal persons who represent businesses or other real estate related to commercial use. We're only talking about people, residents, housing, construction. With this draft law, we're paying a lot of attention to the local authorities because we believe that in the local authorities in every community, there should be a committee that will look at the issues, at what kind of compensation to provide. This committee would not affect, it will not decide who the expert should be or accredit, the real estate developers. It would just provide the organization, starting with looking at the requests for compensation, assessing the houses that have been destroyed or damaged, and then making conclusions so that people can get compensation. Let me repeat, this draft law is getting ready for the second reading. In the first reading, it was supported by more than 300 MPs. That's the constitutional majority. And I hope that in June we will start discussing it at the parliamentary committee so it can be voted by the parliament. I would very much like to invite the local authorities, local government, the Association of Ukrainian Cities to join our work at the committee, because for Ukrainians, this is a very important bill. A month ago, the Ministry of Digital Transformation, thanks to its DIA app, and started the procedure of collecting information about all the housing stock that has been destroyed. We see the statistics are very poor, with the Donetsk region, Kharkiv, and then Kyiv and other regions leading there. We see that more than 10 million square meters have been destroyed or damaged. We see about 200,000 requests, from the people who use the app to submit their requests for compensation. More than 250,000 persons who do not have any place to return to, do not have any homes anymore. Unfortunately, this figure will keep growing because we see that the enemy every day and every night are still shelling us. But I hope that on the legislative level, we should all create proper working mechanisms so that after the victory, at once we can start providing compensation to our people. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for giving me a chance to speak at the forum, and we will be very happy if you all join us in our work at the parliamentary committees. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Olena. We, as Association of Ukrainian Cities, have always been cooperating with you, and we have submitted and will be submitting new proposals to work jointly on the draft laws to improve the quality of services that we are providing those people that live on the territory of our communities. Thanks a lot for providing an overview of the draft laws that you have in your parliamentary committee. Now we have Mayor of Kharkiv with us online, the city that from the very first days of the war has been in the very center of the battles. He is there, he's in Kharkiv, and he is staying with his community, defending it. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks a lot for this opportunity to participate in this forum. Thanks a lot to all the international partners that are taking part in this event. The city of Kharkiv today is not the city that we had before Russian aggression, starting February 24th, from the very beginning of Russian aggression. In the course of several minutes, the city of Kharkiv has been turned into the direct target of ongoing shelling of Russian fascists. And we are jointly with armed forces countering and repelling Russian aggressor in Kharkiv. Russian aggressor, despite anything and everything, cynically keeps shelling residential buildings and residential quarters of Kharkiv. Today, the night, we had two rocket strikes that hit Kharkiv infrastructure, and they completely destroyed another school. It was devastated. It was completely destroyed. There were civilians in that school. Unfortunately, there are killed and injured people as a result of that strike. The situation today is very, very difficult in the city. Despite all this, despite these colossal destructions in Kharkiv, and that's 30% of residential houses that have been completely destroyed. 30%, just think about it. 30% of the apartment blocks in the city of Kharkov were destroyed by Russian aggressor. They targetedly destroy the infrastructure, the water pipes, central heating system. They targetedly destroy the roads, the fleet of trolley buses, and the electric grid. The situation is very difficult, but despite all these complexities, utility companies have been in operation non-stop, and they provide for the livelihood in the city of Kharkiv. We have public transport back to work, less of it, but it is there. Metro is working again because that's the safest means of transport, and starting this Saturday, we extend the working hours for the metro. Metro is currently working 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and we are going to extend it to work 6:30 a.m. until 8 p.m. And that's very important for people. It's very important for people to be able to get to offices, to be able to work. And this allows for the city to live and work. Despite the complexities for the situation, despite the dire situation and all the challenges, we are proactive. We keep thinking about how we are going to revive Kharkiv after the war is over. And we are very specific. We keep working with well-known architect Foster, the one that designed Apple headquarters, the one that designed Reichstag. That was his project that was selected. He has really interesting design for residential quarters that we are going to use. We need these projects. We need to restore industrial park in our city. We have always been an industrial center in the country, and we want to keep developing industry in our city after the war, because that's the basis of our development. Apart from that, Kharkiv has always been a preferred place for IT experts, and IT park is going to be set up as well. City center is going to be established. We are undertaking colossal efforts of our architects, along with Foster. We are developing a new plan of development of the city of Kharkiv, where we are going to preserve the traditions that have been in the city for many years, but will pursue new approaches along with that. That's the new approaches that we already have in mind, and thus we want to create an ideal city of the future. We try to think several dozens years ahead into the future, so that Kharkiv is going to be a cool megapolis of European level, so that the city of Kharkiv is in the top 10 cities in Europe. And we do have all the opportunities to make this happen. Naturally, we will be attracting investments. We are working on this issue at the moment. We'll provide the most favorable conditions for our investors. Will stay open and transparent in everything, so that our investors feel protected. That's extremely important given the reality of Ukraine. And today we need to care about people who lost their homes, who lost their jobs, who lost everything. We try to provide every assistance they need. We try to take care of everybody and all. And that's the main task of local self-governments, especially on the territories that are subject of ongoing shelling. Somebody left, somebody stayed, and we see that people keep returning to the city of Kharkiv. They want to live here. They want to live in safe Kharkiv. And we have to pay a lot of attention to security and safety. With the neighbor being Russian Federation, Russian aggressor, we need to make sure that people should feel safe. And we will need to do a lot to make this happen, so that everybody, not only in Kharkiv, but all over Ukraine, feels safe and secure. I would like to take this opportunity, and I would like to underscore that we have a lot of sister cities all over the world, and all of them responded to my address to them and provide humanitarian assistance. They all provide humanitarian assistance. We also provide humanitarian assistance from many Ukrainian cities, and I appreciate personal efforts of mayors of these cities, the cities that provide invaluable assistance to the city of Kharkiv. I appreciate humanitarian assistance and efforts of mayors of European cities that help us so much. I want all of us to develop investment plans for the future today. A lot depends on the funds that will be able to attract, funds that will be able to raise. We need to have and secure funding secured by the guarantees of the state. You know that President Zelensky recently came to Kharkiv with a visit, and we had a very specific constructive conversation with him as to reconstruction and revival of Kharkiv. And we did discuss the governmental guarantees that the government will be providing for revival. Kharkiv will stay open for investments for our friends. We are open for new production facilities being set up here. We all need this for people to be able to live and work here. It will take some time, but we'll get this victory. I do appreciate and grateful so much to territorial defense, to the armed forces of Ukraine that deter Russian aggressor today. We are sure to prevail and will recover, will revive new Ukraine. Ukraine that will be powerful, happy, and really advanced country. I do believe in this, and I'm sure that this will happen. And I think that through our joint efforts, we'll make it happen. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you, Igor. Thank you for defending the city. Thank you for planning the city of future under the bombs. Thank you. Thank you to the city of Kharkiv. Let me give the floor to the mayor of a small town. Territorially speaking, that's Bucha, Kyiv Oblast. That's Anatoly Fedoruk, who was elected mayor of Bucha in 1998, and since then he has always been the leader of the community, mayor of the community. He is the person who spent 33 days in Bucha when it was occupied. Thank you, Oksana. Dear participants, dear colleagues, dear participants forum. It looks that Russian occupiers, Russian aggressors uses carbon paper to commit atrocities. It doesn't really matter whether that's a large city, small town, settlement, whether there are any armed forces or there is not a single military as it was in our case, but the result is the same. That's atrocities, and more than 2,000 civilian objects were destroyed, completely destroyed within 1 month of occupation in my town. And 419 civilians were not just killed. Killing is a sin, but they were tortured, brutally tortured. And that's what we are going to see in every settlement that is going to be liberated by the armed forces of Ukraine. That's bitter truth. It's very difficult to speak about that, but we have to do that. We need to use every opportunity to talk about this. I'm not going to give a recount of months-long occupation, and since that happened, but let me underscore that it was intentional actions of Russian invaders to destroy civilian infrastructure and destroy it, because the first thing they destroyed is the electricity supply, water supply, gas supply. So critical infrastructure was destroyed first. It's very difficult to talk about that, but newly built scenes that were just put into the service several days before the war. And I'm talking about the schools, and we didn't have a chance even to have classes there. They were targeted too. So today we are saying that Bucha and other settlements that were affected by shelling, that were under occupation. So these settlements and towns were put back dozens of years after the liberation of our communities by the armed forces of Ukraine. From the very first moments, we started restoring critical infrastructure while it's kind of surviving. Especially, we can tell that people keep coming back, and the workload on this infrastructure is increasing, and it comes faulty, and we need to fix it, and we know that we need to relaunch it, we need to modernize it, we need to change it, especially given this short time that we have left before the new heating season is going to start, and a atop the challenges that we faced in this regard in the peaceful time, we'll have new ones during the war. We know that heating infrastructure was in need of modernization even before the war. So today, when we talk about today's development, let me just say that within a short period of time, we drafted a blueprint that's kind of a breakthrough that will allow to provide for the livelihood of the communities and settlements that make the community. But we need to plan for the future to make sure that people, when being back to their homes, will have jobs, will have places to get social services. Since the first thing that people in my town face, and that's similar to other liberated cities, that's access to administrative and social services. And the most important thing, that's jobs, because everybody needs an income to provide for the family and to be able to survive given this dire straits, dire situation. Having conducted analysis jointly with the government and the president's office, we developed the action plan so that in the short-term future, as soon as we can start creating proper, decent conditions so that people of my town and neighboring territorial communities will have jobs. And that's going to be jobs that are going to be there rather than in the capital, because that would increase the burden for the infrastructure. And we know how difficult it was to commute to the capital even before the war. So we work in close cooperation with the city authorities, I mean, Kyiv city authorities. We have one of the projects that we tried to implement before the war, and it remains really important today. That's Bucha Techno Garden, that's industrial park that would unite 7 territorial communities of northern, southern region. They have all had all been occupied, and they were liberated by the armed forces of Ukraine. So it's not just the revival and creating jobs there, but that's just light that we are shedding in the development, economic development of our communities, given all that devastation that they were subjected to by Russian orcs. Our partner cities, whether that's in Ukraine or in other countries, from the very first days, they didn't even ask the question, what you needed, but they sort of imagined what they would do in my place. They started assisting us in providing for the livelihood. And they provided humanitarian assistance to us. Fortunately, we didn't have any crisis with medicines, hygiene items then, and they support us with equipment at this stage. That's used appliances, used equipment, but it's very important for us to have it, because whatever we had, it was all looted. All occupiers occupiers loaded the trucks with the electric appliances and took everything we had. We saw the footage of that. I'm grateful for this event because we can discuss the potential and possibilities for economic recovery of the country. So that's large prospects that we are discussing, but we need to live properly today. So twinning partnership of on the level of peers is very important. It's critical important because it delivers results today, not tomorrow, but today, because people need to go to the hospital today, they need to go to schools today, they need to get social services today. So that's very important to have this type of partnership. Taking this opportunity, I would like to say that Bucha community is open to investments. We are open to implementation of joint projects, whether with international partners or the projects of intermunicipal cooperation. Before the war, we could be kind of jealous sometimes when we discuss different ideas expressed by our neighbors. Today, we are united. In the face of the challenges, we stay united as one to be able to resolve these issues and challenges. And ahead of the new heating season, we just had a meeting where we discussed that. Let me underscore that we'll have much more serious challenges if you compare that with the situation before February 24, because gas price and infrastructure will require revolutionary measures to be undertaken by all of us to be able to provide quality services, in particular heating to our houses in the next season. Thanks a lot again for this opportunity to update you on the situation in Bucha community. And again, let me express my gratitude to our partners. Happy to see all of you, really do. Thanks a lot. We do have a lot of plans that are made at the moment.
I'm sure that today's speeches will make it possible for the communities that are here with us and the ones that are networking with one another online, to make it possible for them to restore their possibilities, including for the heating season. I would like to hear Vadim Voichenko now, the mayor of Mariupol. We're going back to the east, the city that unfortunately has become known to all of the world, the city that is not only planning its revival, but to make sure that people who had to flee the city under the aggressor's bombs would feel residents of Mariupol wherever they are in other cities or villages in Ukraine. Mr. Boychenko, please. Good afternoon, Oksana, dear colleagues, dear panelists, representatives of our cities, partner cities, international diplomatic missions. Some pain and terror coming from my city, Mariupol. The Russian occupiers, unfortunately, we have seen, this kind of military offensive back in 1941, when the Nazis killed more than 10,000. Today, after only 2 months, they killed 22,000 people. That's more than in 2 years of occupation of my city by the Nazis during the Second World War. Now there's twice more destruction. They have not left a single building intact. Everything that we see today, we see destruction, we see murders, we see death. And this is what this so-called Russian world looks like. But whatever the enemy is trying to do, whatever those orcs are doing, trying to destroy us, they cannot destroy Mariupol, because Mariupol is not only buildings or roads, not only the parks that we had just built. Mariupol is people. These are Mariupolans. And as long as we have Mariupolans, Mariupol will live in our hearts. It has so happened that today the enemy has 100,000 local residents as hostages. There are people who managed to flee, almost 200,000 people who have left our heroic city that has been destroyed, wrecked by the war. Today we are creating the centers of support that are very important, that are called I Am Mariupol. This is comprehensive assistance, from humanitarian to social to psychological and legal support. This is a place of care, of rescue. This is mini Mariupol. And there's those centers, we only have residents of Mariupol, and this creates a completely different level of trust. Such centers are already open in Zaporizhia, in Kyiv, in Vinnytsia. We plan to launch them in other 11 cities of Ukraine, where Today, many residents of Mariupol have found their new homes because help is coming to the people and not vice versa. But the centers called I Am Mariupol are not only about Mariupol, that's about each of us, all of us, citizens of Ukraine. If it were not for the help coming from the other mayors in other cities, we would not have been able to open up 4 centers of assistance like that. And I want to thank our friends and partners who have responded. And together, we have launched such centers. I want to thank Boris Filatov, Serhiy Morgunov, Vitaly Klitschko, the City Council of Zaporizhia. We hope that more joint efforts would be taken by the municipalities and that this I Am Mariupol centers would be opened in Lviv, Odessa, Kropivnitsky, Kryvyi Rih, Khmelnytsky, Frankivsk, Uzhhorod, and other cities. Most importantly is where our Mariupol residents are waiting for this help. Every center, I Am Mariupol, is an example of joint efforts by the Ukrainian municipalities. It is with those actions and this unity that we see the strongest feature of our country, Ukraine. The evacuation of people, starting a system of assistance. From that, we're proceeding to a huge project, coming back to life. And here we see as a priority to make sure that Mariupolians get jobs and houses, all kinds of services, so that they can get adapted to, unfortunately, the new way of life. What kind of housing are we talking about today? The main area is quick construction building to create infrastructure for us so that families can live together in those module houses. It's a possibility to further resettle, those houses to our city, to Mariupol. We're thinking about a pilot project in the countries in the center of the country with the area of about 10,000 hectares for thousands of Mariupolians and a possibility to multiply this project all over Ukraine. At the same time, we believe that Mariupol will be liberated by our armed forces of Ukraine. That's why, together with our international experts, today we're also developing, just like other cities, we're working with architects, we're creating task forces to develop a vision of the new, rebuilt Mariupol. We're developing a step-by-step strategy, detailed plans, master plans for urban construction. At the moment, the buildings, the housings in our city have been destroyed by 90%. Unfortunately, most of them will not be rebuilt. Only the framework is standing in some places with such terrible consequences. Well, this is what we already saw during the Second World War that I have already remembered. We could see that in Warsaw, in Gdansk, in Rotterdam, but they arose from ashes. They were reborn. And it's important for us that the municipalities of those cities are joining the efforts with us to this rebuilding of Mariupol project. The road for this revival will be difficult. It will take years. And it will require huge investments. We have calculated that already it's almost $12.5 billion. Now, what is the Mariupol that we see? The city of peace and freedom, the city of bold architectural designs and modern economy. But most importantly, what should not change is the comfort that we had already built in Mariupol for our people, the soul of our Mariupol. In order to accelerate the process of rebuilding, we need to have standard approaches, as our experts have already suggested today. The typical apartments, flexible architecture, and public spaces, this is a task that all the destroyed cities are facing. But in those standard solutions, we have to take into account the mistakes of the Soviet times. Unification should not lead to those concrete box construction. That's why engaging architects of the world, urban planners of the world, is of crucial importance. At the end, I would like to say just one thing. Ukraine will definitely win. We will win. Ukrainians are not just 40 million people who found themselves in one territory, which unfortunately the occupiers are trying to destroy today. Ukrainians are free people ready to fight for our independence, for our freedom at any front. And we are doing that. We are fighting for our victory, for every life, for our Ukraine. And victory will definitely come. Thank you. Glory to the heroic defenders of Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Thank you very much, Vadim. Thank you for defending simple people, for thinking about them, thinking about tomorrow, for making your plans, for telling us how Mariupol will look like. And Ukrainian architects will speak about that today. We're going to have some members of the Union of Architects of Ukraine. They will tell us about what they see, how Ukraine will look like tomorrow. I'd like to give the floor now to Vitaly Maletsky, Kremenchuk city mayor, who since 2010 has been with the local self-government, right, in Kremenchuk. Twice now he has been elected as mayor by the city. Thank you, Oksana. Good afternoon, dear participants of this event, dear colleagues. It's true that Kremenchuk finds itself now quite far away, relatively far away from the war, but our city finds it also very difficult to keep working. Let me explain why. During the past 2 months, as a result of 3 Caliber-class missiles that hit Mariupol, 27 missiles hit our power plant. They did it on purpose to destroy the only oil refinery that keeps working in Ukraine. They started on the 2nd of April with 6 and then 9 and then 12 missiles that hit it. The factory has been wrecked, has been completely crushed, and all of Ukraine is now feeling the consequences of this oil crisis. We do not have any gasoline to even provide it to the trucks that provide food to almost all of central Ukraine. In addition to oil refinery, they have also destroyed our power plant that used to give heating to 180,000 residents of the Kremenchuk on the left bank, which was the only source of centralized heating. As a result of being hit by missiles, after the second strike, they completely destroyed 2 units, and after the third one, all of them were completely smashed. At the moment today, we're on the eve of a huge heating crisis. We're sure that with the help of our partners and colleagues, we would be able to solve it. Even today, we're working to engage into solving the heating problem, the capacities of other industries, those industries that were taken off the boiler houses that stopped working in 2012, but now we hope to bring them back so that they can once again provide heating to Kremenchuk. In parallel, we're looking at decentralization of heating projects to introduce autonomous heating, but the volume of this kind of work is even difficult to imagine today. So the only alternative is to bring back centralized heating delivery. We have turned to the government. We hope to get support of the government, of President Zelensky in solving this extremely important issue for the community. Today, Kremenchuk has lost the enterprise. They used to be the biggest taxpayer in the city. That was one of the 10 biggest taxpayers in Ukraine. Ukr-Nafta would usually pay about 10 billion hryvnias every year to the public budget. It will be difficult for us to work. But again, thanks to our partners, we have been able to lived through very difficult March and April. We have developed the so-called Stabilization Fund with the money that we had to give back on the loan programs to the EBRD, NEFCO, as we had agreed with them before. We have been able to support our industrial enterprises by giving them defense projects where they are building and repairing the military equipment so that people can get their salaries and that the businesses that have lost their markets could pay for the energy resources that they're getting and to save some time. We have created, in fact, a closed economy of the military period in just one city. We have given jobs to the civil enterprises so that they're repairing infantry vehicles and tanks. We have given the jobs, we have given commandments to the light industry that is now making uniforms for the armed forces of Ukraine. We've given some work to our food industry who have learned not to bake bread. Well, they still keep baking bread, but they manage to produce now canned food for the armed forces. Today, it really allows the city to keep working. And as I talk to my colleagues, I understand how difficult it is for them when their economy has stopped completely, when there are no taxes, when people have no jobs. And we feel our responsibility. We've now started the program called Humanitarian Kremenchuk, with which we allow the refugees to get integrated into our community. We understand that most of them, after Ukraine is liberated, would go back home. But in those difficult months, we have to support them. We're now creating social support programs. We make it possible for the people to get for free housing from the city. We now have about 200 rooms that are being renovated by the city, and thanks to partnership support from the Red Cross, from humanitarian organizations, from the UN, we provide all the necessary things to these people: blankets, furniture, and even refrigerators, so that they can temporarily take care of themselves in those new apartments and rooms that they have. This program has also become possible thanks to the local financial resources, thanks to quick renovation work in such rooms and houses that have been abandoned for years. We've done an inventory. We're now working on them, renovating them, and every week we give those new apartments to the people for free. They just have to pay the utility fees. In the city, we have 23,000 of IDPs today. More than 13,000 of them have been registered by Humanitarian Kremenchuk that gave them food, that helped them with accommodation, health services, education services. That humanitarian mission should be a priority for all of us. Today, we are saying that we need to develop our infrastructure. We really need to rebuild the infrastructure that has been destroyed, and we very much hope to have support of our partners and technical solutions and funding in bringing back heating to the city. But not only that, we need to continue working on developing and building the second bridge across the Dnieper, the work that was stopped during the war. Thanks to Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine had seen many new roads. Our logistics became much better. Our humanitarian and even military cargoes, it made it much easier for them to move all around Ukraine. Rebuilding that bridge is very important for us because without a very powerful logistic system, we're vulnerable. In fact, that's a kind of a nonsense when, for example, there are 6 kilometers of the roads that lead to the oil refinery, but they are outside of our territorial community, and we cannot repair that work. And the village community does not need those roads. So it takes a truck 40 minutes to take 6 kilometers of such roads. It also takes them to get 40 minutes to get from Kremenchuk to Poltava. 40 minutes too. And now the issue of restoring such roads and logistic chains is also important. And here we should say that the local utilities of the regional council should join this process and should identify the priorities for themselves as to which road should be rebuilt as a priority, which road should become the road of life and the road of victory for all of Ukraine. Today, we realize that we need to keep working. We are ready to develop all kinds of projects together with our partner cities. We're grateful to them for their support, to our twin cities in Western Ukraine that are helping us. Lviv military administration that is providing humanitarian assistance to our city. And we then share this humanitarian assistance with our new residents of Kremenchuk, the refugees. Among them, there are many people who used to live in Kharkiv and Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, people coming from Mykolaiv, from Mariupol. For them, we have become a temporary home, and I'm sure that they will all go back to their real homes, and together we will rebuild Ukraine. Thank you for your support. We will win. Thank you.
Thank you, Vitaly. It's really inspirational to hear of the examples that you quoted and the unity that was demonstrated there. I am not sure whether we have Chuguyev with us. I would like, yes, we have Halina with us. Chuguyev is under Shalin as we speak, and I'm very happy that Halina, the head of Chuguyev City Council, is with us, the member of the board of the Association of Ukrainian Cities, candidate of science on public governance. I don't know how I holding up there. I remember when we were delivering a humanitarian assistance, so we went as far as Lugansk Oblast, but we couldn't reach you. I don't know how you are still surviving. Let's talk about tomorrow. Let's talk about future. Good afternoon. I am really happy that we managed to get connected because, as Oksana said, we are under constant shelling. We have internet issues. We have wounded people. Fortunately, we don't have killed, but there are serious destructions caused to residential houses. But we are working. Let me just update you with our communities. That's more for European partners. The city of Chuguyev, that's Chuguyev community that is made of the town Chuguyev and 6 settlements. The total number of residents before the war was 39,000 people. The Pishana village was occupied. Today, we fortunately have liberated it. So our task is to assist people there, as well as people in the remote villages, by providing them with the necessary food products and medicines. Utility services have been provided by 5 utility companies, and they keep providing it now. Unfortunately, from the beginning of the war, the town was destroyed seriously as a result of the shelling. Almost all utility companies have their premises destroyed. Out of 13 boiler houses that provided for the heating in the communities, 9 has window glass broken. There are no doors. The technological equipment has been destroyed by 90% in 2 of them. In 4 of them, it is by 50%. Out of 197 apartment blocks, 50 were severely damaged. The largest, the most serious destruction was caused during the first days of the war. That's Aviator district close to the airport as a result of the missile strike. 4 residential buildings were seriously damaged. 2 boiler houses were seriously critically damaged, and no matter how hard we tried to fix them, we didn't manage to do that, and 69 houses stayed without heating until springtime. One other remote residential building, that's the Horishna Street, as a result of the shelling, boiler house was seriously damaged too. It was technological equipment that was destroyed too. After my request to the companies, and thanks to cooperation with businesses and utility companies, we managed to fix the boiler house, and it was turned back to work, and 10 apartment blocks got heat in there, so people were not freezing there. A lot of residential houses were seriously destroyed. 59 houses are in need of rebuilding a new 117, that's as of yesterday, that would require serious renovations. In the morning, we had 3 more houses added to that. We don't have the final estimates from the experts, but given the pictures that I received in the morning, I can say that they will require renovation. We have 23 educational institutions. 3 of them are in need of a serious renovation. Another important element of critical infrastructure here is bridges. They connected different districts in our town and between different settlements. As you see from the pictures, so that's the degree of the destruction inflicted on the bridges, and that's a serious challenge because we need bridges to deliver food and medicine to the other areas. We do have roads, but they are very dangerous. The most important thing now is to end the war, to secure victory, and the main task we are facing. I'm not talking about recovery, which is always high on the agenda, but despite the shelling and despite the jets and missiles flying, we need to make sure that the houses are heated in winter. And the biggest challenge to this end when it comes to recovery is to provide people with housing. That's people that lost their houses. We are provided with the expert support to estimate the scale of destruction. We have the project called We'll Rebuild Everything. The most important thing is to make sure that people stay alive. The kids shouldn't die. It's very difficult, but I'm sure that we'll prevail because that's our land. And we believe in the armed forces of Ukraine. They are indomitable. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you, Halina. Please hold up, persevere. And let me give the floor to the person sitting next to me. That's Kryvyi Rih City Mayor, the head of the council of 2 convocations, the person that made really critical decisions, the person that during the war is leading the city in defending it, in recovering it. Let me just add one thing here. You're the president of the mining academy, apart from other titles that you have. So over to you then. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear participants of this forum. Kривий Ріг, similar to other country, so 24 February changing the life completely. We turned to the war mode then, and Association of Ukrainian Cities, as always, have been coordinating this work, coordinating the work of our communities. And that's not only coordination that we have inside the country, but that's at the international level as well. So we are united. We got united and we assist each other in this very difficult time. All the resources and forces of Kryvyi Rih are focused on the most important things, that's the defense of the city and support to the armed forces of Ukraine. On February 25, we established the Defense Council and military administration of the city of Kryvyi Rih. We work 24/7 jointly with the armed forces of Ukraine and the National Guard, as well as territorial defense and law enforcement agencies to defend the city. The city housed all military units. We created respective conditions for them. We provide them with 3 meals per day. The city is doing everything to create a proper fortification in the city to defend it. We erected hundreds of fortifications. We have more than 100 units of special equipment. To do that, we have 7.5 thousand cubic meters of wood allocated for the defense, 5,000 units of various types of building blocks to create fortifications. We used slabs, that's more than 1,000 slabs used for fortifications. And without any exaggeration, I would like to say that the city of Kryvyi Rih is one of the most and best fortified cities of Ukraine. From day one, we started providing comprehensive support to the armed forces of Ukraine. We started producing necessary equipment. Private funds and donations were used to produce more than 10,000 of bulletproof vests, more than 3,000 sets of uniform, and 4,000 berets, and we bought 3,000 helmets. We procured 300 vehicles that have been transferred to the army. Apart from doing everything possible to make sure that infrastructure is properly operating in the city, that's something that is basically our mandate and responsibility. We do our best to support the armed forces of Ukraine, and we have thus allocated procured and transferred to the armed forces various material and equipment worth more than 361 million hryvnia. That includes food, medicines, medical equipment, fuel, and other things. Kryvyi Rih undertakes fixing and modernization of military equipment. That's done upon request of the armed forces. The city has accumulated a strategic stock of food supply that could last for several months. That includes medicines as well, and this can be used by the community, by the army, and by the IDPs. The city is assisting Kherson, Mykolaiv, and Kharkiv oblasts with food, medicine, supply, and equipment that is provided as humanitarian assistance. We are located close to the border, and we are thankful to the armed forces that drove the enemy away from the city, 60 kilometers away from the city. And we see more and more displaced persons coming to our city. We have more than 60 displaced persons from 15 regions of Ukraine that we've hosted. While we provide them with accommodation, food, and create conditions necessary for their living, provide clothing, hygiene items. Naturally, there's also medical assistance and the psychological support that is provided to IDPs. The schools, kindergartens, and dormitories have been turned to be livable and fit for accommodation of IDPs. We provide the IDPs with food too. We also provide jobs for IDPs, and a lot of IDPs in our city have already found jobs. Surely, war undermined and destroyed business activity in our city, so we are doing our best to support businesses. The decision was made to decrease local taxes and duties. We are ready to do more to make sure that SMEs are developing and facilitate that. We keep developing industrial park Kyiv bus, and here we would appreciate assistance, and we would appreciate new laws that are currently sitting in the parliament. We need them so much. We understand that because of destruction and because of that, we see significant losses inflicted to industrial enterprises in the east of Ukraine. It is the industrial potential that will define largely the recovery of economy and reconstruction of Ukrainian cities. Because without metallurgical industry, it would be next to impossible to do that. And in Ukraine, we used to have 35 to 40% currency reserves that we received thanks to metallurgical complex. We have a lot less of them working now, and that affects the economy of our state. To revive all this, we needed to streamline the national market of metal products, and that should be done now. We needed to take stock of what was destroyed and to what extent. And also due to temporary blockade of our ports, logistics of selling products, of exporting it has been significantly undermined and destroyed. So we need a kind of, joint collective decision to be made upon analysis of all these issues so that we could provide support to metallurgical sector in the first place. And this would be crucial for economy. The decision of the EU on non-carbon tax is an important decision that could contribute to enhancing our opportunities. Our city faces other challenges that includes adjusting national transport model and transport models of our partner countries, EU member states. Addressing the housing issue for IDPs that remains high on our agenda. Speeding up of adoption of the law on industrial parks will enable many communities to accelerate their economic development. We need urban electric transport in the city. We need a lot more other things, but we are in the midst of war, and the priority remains defense of the state. I am sure that jointly standing together will do everything needed and possible for the victory of the state, for the fastest possible victory of our state, and for the recovery of our state. Thanks a lot for attention. Peace to all of us, and will prevail. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Thank you. Thank you, Yuri. Let me give the floor to the representative of the architects. All mayors, all heads spoke about that. And while they define the Ukraine of the future and our communities, I appreciate that they are with us today. Thanks for being with us.
560 тисяч архітекторів Європи з 47 організацій 32 країн. Це Рада архітекторів України, Рада архітекторів Європи, яку представляє у нас на форумі зараз її президентка Рут Шагерман.
Ruth Shagerman, the president, is taking the floor.
To this important forum. I feel honored to be part of it, and I send my deepest regards to my Ukraine and international colleagues. As the Architects' Council of Europe, we wholeheartedly condemn Putin's war in the Ukraine, which is increasingly becoming a war against civilian population, and confirm our deepest solidarity with all those affected. Your unbreakable will to take charge of the rebuilding of the Ukraine is a courageous and important statement towards the aggressor. The Architects' Council of Europe is extremely concerned about the destruction of the built environment in Ukraine and the threats to the invaluable Ukraine culture and architectural heritage. Architecture and our built environment are the reflection of our society. And after the war in the Ukraine, the reshaping of society will have a strong impact on the built environment. It will be about creating a place of belonging, identity, and home, an environment where people feel safe, can live healthy, raise their children in a vital community, and have a positive outlook for the future. However, in the rush to rebuild, it is the responsibility of the local and national government to ensure that the collaboration between Ukraine architects and local government is strengthened. The procurement of replacement structure is quality-based. Sustainable criteria and quality-oriented approaches, such as the use of architectural design competitions, are to put in place. Economic, environmental, social, and cultural values are equally implemented. Future architecture in the Ukraine will reflect the democratic values you are fighting for, and the European architects are ready to provide support in order to achieve together a beautiful, sustainable, inclusive future. Thank you for having me, and I wish you the best for your forum.
Дякуємо дуже, пані Рут. Дякуємо за те, що
Thank you, Ruth.
Вона говорить, архітектура, вона буде відповідати тому,
for underscoring that architecture will reflect what we are, and I hope that this is going to happen. We will stay strong and be strong. With this, let me invite head of Mykolaiv region branch. Mykolaiv is now at the heart of warfare, but he found time to join us. Alexander Fedorovich, head of Mykolaiv City Council. Well, everything is on. Just don't forget to press the button. Thank you.
Hello. It is a really big pleasure for me to
Добрий
Kyiv. Thank you for your visit and for your help, first of all. I appeal to those who are here in this hall and for sure for all who are online with us today. Ukrainians are really brave people, and they prove this in history of Ukraine. But for sure, we won't win in this war without the help of Europe, of European countries that now are not only our colleagues or guests, but more friends and relatives. Today, I want to thank you from people of Ukraine and people of Mykolaiv, because we really appreciate your help in humanitarian and technical support of our country and our city. While my previous 5 years of my mayorship, I was a member of a representative of in European Congress of Local and Regional Authorities, and one of my tasks was a work on resolution of Congress on IDPs in Europe. I never thought that my city will face that, and people of my city will be IDPs and even refugees in our country. So today, in Mykolaiv, there are a little bit more than 200,000 people left out of 500,000 people who were in the city before the war. So for sure, a lot of them are now in Europe, like my family, and they are in safe place. And I also want to thank you for that. This morning in Mykolaiv started with the bombardments, with the artillery strike. Actually, we have these strikes almost every day, starting from February 24th. We counted about 18 days when we were not bombarded at all all these days. Most of the objects are just, city blocks, sleeping blocks where people just live, where people visit kindergartens and schools. And sometimes people ask me why they bombard us, why they bombard not military bases, and what kind of demilitarization or denazification they do. I usually say that there is no explanation for that, but the only one explanation is that what they do is genocide of Ukrainian people. The bombardments that they do, Russian occupants do on Mykolaiv, they do everywhere. Almost every neighborhood or small district was bombarded while these 3 months of war. 280 apartment buildings and 374 private households were damaged, and a lot of them we won't be able to renovate because they totally ruined. But we still, with a good mood and with the thought that the win will be soon. While this time, I don't think too much about ruins, because for sure in the end of this war we'll renovate everything, but the most losses are people. We lost, 104 people were killed while this war. One of them was a child, and about 460 people were injured. 4 of them were children. The biggest, but I won't bother you anymore with the numbers. I will tell you what the biggest problem we face today. On April 12th, Russian occupants ruined the pipeline that goes from Kherson region to Mykolaiv, and this is the main pipeline that provides the city with the raw water that we used to create drinking water. Right now, we're in lack of drinking water. About a month, we had no water at all. So we used trucks to supply people with drinking water. And after the months of this problem, we made a decision to take water from the river which we stay on. It's South Blue. But unfortunately, the quality of water is not drinking. It's actually technical. So people can wash and they can use it for toilet and everything, but they can't use it in food. So now we have really big problem with that. And I don't see any quick decision on that. So we for sure need a help of European, or let's say Western partners on that as soon as possible, so we will be able to provide our people, Mykolaiv citizens, with drinking water. It's hard to think about development of the city while you're under the shelling, while you need, I hear from my colleagues that they think about price of for the gas for the next heating season. But I think about tens, thousands of windows that are broken in our city and ability to launch heating season at all. So we need to think about it too. We are trying to think about it. So, sorry? And about gas too, for sure. But yes, it's another type of problem that can be resolved on the top level. So, but anyway, the war and the end of this war will be, let's say, a chance to review our general plan of our city, the vision of development of our city, and for other cities in Ukraine too. And for sure, we will need approaches that foreign architects have, but for sure, our own architects too, who will be able to tie the technological development of Europe and Western civilization and Ukrainian heart. So for sure, we will cooperate with you on that, and we wait for this war to be end as soon as possible, and then we will for sure will start to develop our city and think about more IT clusters and shipbuilding and port infrastructure that we had before the war as for our city. So I'm finishing my speech, and I want to mention one thing. Sometimes when you see TV, when you click on that remote control and you click those channels, you see the war stories on the TV. Or when you scroll your web browser reading the news, you see those news items about the war. And sometimes you are tired about it. Oh shit, again, war in Ukraine, again, they're suffering, again, they have problems. Okay, we're tired of it. So I ask you not to be tired of it. Please don't be tired, because it is not a war between Ukraine and Russia. It is war between two civilizations. The Western civilization that wants to find a cure from the cancer that want to find a clean energy and to build a sustainable development plan for the whole world. And another civilization that proud of its heroic past, that privatized Soviet Union victory in World War II, and the things that the Russian world, Russian, let's say, Russian skrypy is the only thing that the world needs. So we don't need that world. And again, thank you for your cooperation. Thank you for your help, and we expect for our cooperation in future. And for sure, for this win in this war to be sooner, we need your help in technical and weapon direction, which we won't discuss today here. But anyway, only together we will win this war, because there is nothing good in war. There's nothing rational in war, but it happens, and we need to finish it as soon as possible. Thank you, and welcome to Nikolaev after the war.
With this, I would like to invite head of Zaporizhzhia chapter of the association. He is a mayor of Polohe. The floor is yours. How are you?
Good afternoon, dear friends. Thank you very much for a possibility to participate in this forum. You know, this subject area, what I would add here, just one more word. Before revival, I would first think about the liberation and revival of Ukraine, because for our community, that's the most relevant issue today. Today, we would love to talk about revival, but unfortunately, we have to talk about challenges first. And the first challenge for us is the word war in its worst dimensions. We could never imagine that with the very first days of the war, the production would in fact stop, the production in our community. And our community is one of the most industrialized among all the rural communities of the region. The factories have stopped, farmers stopped, and on the 3rd of March, till 10 a.m., we could not even hear explosions. We could not even believe that our community could be occupied. But the city was occupied the same day. Today is the 90th day when we have been occupied, and I would call it brutal occupation. We used to be proud of the fact that our community was as a logistic hub between Zaporizhzhia, Mariupol, Melitopol, Dnipropetrovsk. Today, this logistic hub is used by the occupiers as a military base. We think that today in our city, there are more occupiers than us, the residents. Together with us, the heroic Hulaypole and Orikhiv heroic towns. And the occupiers for 3 months have not been able to take those settlements. And after each failure, they would start shelling our town. Today, security, after all those 90 days, the residents have never felt secure, not a single day or a single night. More than 400 objects have been destroyed. Out of 26 schools, 20 have been destroyed. The culture clubs, healthcare centers, all of this has been damaged or destroyed. Today, we cannot even establish the losses completely. We cannot even know what has been smashed, because this morning, for example, I heard that once again, there was more shelling, more destruction. We have 32 peaceful residents who have been killed and more than 40 who have been wounded. And that happens every day. The next challenge we felt was the possibility or impossibility to provide health services. On the 2nd of April, the invaders threw away from the biggest regional hospital all the doctors, all the medical nurses, all the experts, they turned it into their medical hospital, and our people had to stay away, and the hospital was mined. Most doctors had to leave. Unfortunately, we only have 3 doctors and 3 dentists who keep providing some medical assistance in our territory. It is very difficult for us to try to get through the front line, medicines, drugs, and give them away to the people. It's hard even to imagine how people who require insulin, what they feel, because we get very few deliveries. As the center of the city and all the infrastructure were destroyed in the first days of the war, today we don't have banks, post offices, ATM machines. Today, getting cash is almost impossible in the community. We have tried to do something in April. Our heroic post office, post mailmen, they tried to bring some mail to the people. Some of them were wounded. One of them was killed. And in May, we could no longer deliver cash, pensions to the community, evacuation. We never thought about it. On the 3rd of March and on the 4th, people started leaving through the checkpoints, through filtration, going through the front line, risking their life. At the moment, in the community where we used to have 30,000, we have a little bit more than 1/3 left. In spite of all the difficulties, people still try to leave the community. It was only once that we managed to provide buses. In all the other cases, people risk their life and health by trying to leave. But the municipal services continue working, the ones that are still there. The water has been destroyed, we bring it back. The electric lines have been destroyed, we bring them back. Gas pipelines have been damaged, but a part of the city is still getting natural gas, and people are used now to living in this situation of stress. It's hard even to imagine what will happen if in the nearest future we are not liberated, which is what we hope for. Another problem is humanitarian assistance. During March and April, we managed, thanks to the support of the regional administration, the district administration, and volunteers and businesses, we managed to bring a lot of humanitarian assistance. And there have been situations when we had so much of it that there was nobody to distribute it. But after the 1st of May, the occupiers have blocked humanitarian deliveries, and only some individual volunteers try to do that. Today, at our warehouses, we have quite a lot of humanitarian assistance that we cannot deliver to the people. Well, these are not all of the challenges that the community is facing, probably, but we, the ones who have left, the ones who are under occupation, we believe in our armed forces. We believe that they will definitely liberate our community and all the communities of Ukraine. They will liberate us, and after the victory, we will definitely rebuild and revive our country. We are completely sure of that. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Thank you, Yuri Anatolievich. Thank you, and we hope that Polohi would be liberated as quickly as possible, all the occupied territories, and Ukraine would get back its territorial integrity. Please take care. I'm coming back, and I'm giving the floor to Olena Sidorenko, head of Orzhitsa Settlement Council. She has been elected for the 2nd time, and she is one of the few women in the local self-government that keeps working as the mayor. Please. Thank you, Oksana. You know, first of all, greetings to everybody, greetings to our international partners. I wanted to say very many things. I want to tell you about the challenges that the usual rural community, small one, is trying to overcome in Poltava region, an authentic community that has many common features with other communities of Ukraine. But after what we've heard from our colleagues who are either under occupation or very close to the front line, Perhaps our challenges are not real challenge. First of all, we're grateful to the armed forces of Ukraine so that the front was stopped there. We're grateful to our colleagues, the mayors, who sustained that pressure, allowing us in Poltava region to live with peaceful life, in fact. That's why I will be brief. What do communities, small rural communities face? The problems are the same all over Ukraine, in fact. Let me give you our example. The population is 16,000. For 16,000, we have a very small budget that has not been implemented because of many factors. And the first and main one, because the physical revenue tax is our main source, while the farmers is the main business in our community. They cannot pay taxes now because in autumn, they could not sell grain because they were waiting for a better price in springtime. And today the situation is what it is. They can either not sell their grain at all or not with the price they would like to get. Although farmers should now plant the grain to provide bread to the country and to the world, bread and other foodstuffs, and we understand that only 17% of all the grain has been sold, and if they don't get it, we won't get it. The other challenge that we have faced was the budget area. We are a rural community, and in fact, we don't have any shelters in the kindergartens or schools, and we have to learn to live with that. We are not yet suffering from the missiles or bombs. However, if bombs are dropped some 30 kilometers away from us in Lubny, we should be ready for this to happen in Orzhitsa community or in such communities all over Ukraine. Our challenges are the challenges that all the communities of Ukraine are facing. That's the heating. We hope that we would be able to get it, but now we already have to think about how the schools or social infrastructure should be able to be heated with alternative fuels, roads. We had huge problems to rebuild the roads between different settlements. And of course, we cannot do it today because we are underfunded, and every fourth child with us studies at schools where they have to be brought by buses. Today, our serious problem is related to the internally displaced persons. Orzhitsa community is hosting about 2,000 IDPs. These are the people who have come. They can be broken down into three categories: people who have come to stay with their family members or with their remote relatives, or people who have come to nowhere. And life is most difficult for this latter group because they just would have some documents and children or elderly parents. We have to support them. We have to make it possible for them to stay in our villages and settlements. And this is a rural community, once again, where we don't have hostels, when we don't have municipal housing. In fact, we just have private houses. And in fact, we have to be, quite careful with our, wishes, because once we wanted our villages to be full of people, we never wanted it to happen because of the war. I know we will overcome those challenges. We don't have any moral right to pull the blanket when some people suffer more than we do. We, in the Ukrainian folklore, we have an interpretation of what the Bible says about the flower that is burning, but will never burn down. I know Ukraine will shine. Thanks to our armed forces, thanks to the people who, with small contributions every day, are helping us to accelerate our victory. Thank you. Thank you very much, Elena. Let's thank our partners once again, our partners and friends who are helping us to fight this war, because they're helping us, the communities from all over the world, from Europe. And finally, the final word in this part will come from a big friend of Ukraine who for many years has been helping us In fact, with all the issues related to local self-government, a special representative of the government of Germany on decentralization, good governments and reforms in Ukraine, Georg Milbrandt, who is really in constant touch with us, helping us in any way that Europe can help us. Please, let's have Mr. Milbrandt with us.
Dear Chairman, dear Vladimir, dear participants of the AUC Forum on Reconstruction. Please excuse that I'm not with you due to other business outside Europe. Here are my key statements. The crucial precondition of a revived Ukraine is a lasting deoccupation of all your territory. The supply of necessary weapons is key, as well as a reliable and resilient post-war order. But for a real revival, you need more: a successful economy, a strong civic society, further improved government structures, and a European perspective. The incredible destructions caused by the Russians require a huge amount of money, which Ukraine cannot raise alone. Comprehensive financial support from the West on a very large scale is necessary, and that means real sacrifices for the Western societies as well. Reconstruction is more than a technical process and a comprehensive plan of the government. This task needs a strong commitment and the inclusion of the cities and municipalities and broad civic participation. Therefore, Ukraine must enhance and protect local democracy further. And last but not least, we are talking about an incredible amount of money, which will attract corruption, misuse, and many other crimes. The war against these evils must be as resolute and successful as the war against the foreign enemy. Not only for funding, but also for your profound reforms, we must help you by the status of an EU candidate and free access to our markets in the meantime. I wish you and your country all the best. Try to support you from abroad and hope to see you in person as soon as possible. Thank you very much.